Hello, everyone. We're having a good day. Welcome to the University of Sheffield. So, I've got my lunch with me here because I'm a bit worried that I might get a bit hungry through this lecture. And I want to have a look and see what was packed up for me for lunch today. So what have I got in my lunchbox? I've got a cheese and pickle sandwich. Yummy. Got a chocolate bar. And I've got a banana. Now, I love bananas. Who likes bananas? Yeah, me too. They're a great fruit. So why do we eat bananas? Why do we eat food at all? Bananas are just a few examples of food that people eat. And people eat for two reasons. The first reason they eat is to get energy. So what do we mean by energy? Wynne told you he had an apple, so he got the energy to do his job. What do we mean by energy? Did everyone have a breakfast this morning? A good breakfast? Excellent. Best meal of the day. So while you've been traveling here to the university, to my lecture, your body has been taking the energy out of that food. And it's been doing that so you can use it. And I'm going to prove that to you. Now, I have a guest who's going to come onto the stage in a second. Thank you very much. What was your name? Lucy. Very nice to meet you, Lucy. Thank you. So what Lucy's going to do is a little experiment for us. She is going to, when I give you the mark, she's going to run on the spot for about 20 seconds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to film her with a special camera. And this camera actually measures heat. So we're going to take Lucy's temperature while she's running on the spot, okay? So let me find my special camera. Here it is. So if we can cut to the camera, awesome. Wow. So we can see Lucy with my special camera. So when it's cold, it's blue, and when it's warm, it goes from yellow to red to white when it's really, really warm. So what we're going to do is, in a second, we're going to watch Lucy run on the spot and warm up. So, shall we do a countdown? 3, 2, 1, go! We see Lucy's getting a bit hotter. Yeah, round of applause. Come on, everyone. Okay, I think that's enough. Oh, well done. Round of applause for Lucy. Thank you very much. So, wow, did we all see that? Did we see Lucy changing colour and getting warmer? And that's because Lucy's body was taking the energy out of the food she had for her breakfast, and it was turning it into the movement, the running on the spot, and it was turning it into heat. So that was excellent. Now that gives me an idea. We all know that plants are really good food for humans, and that's because they've got lots of energy in them. So shall we see how much energy is in our food? Yes or no? Do you want to see how much energy is in our food? Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some sugar and we're going to release all of the energy from that sugar in one go. So I'm going to invite another guest, Callum, to the stage. He's going to help me do this. Thank you, Callum. So what we're going to do is when I give the mark, we're going to have another countdown in a second. Callum is going to jump on this pump. And what it's going to do is it's going to blow sugar into the air, and we're going to see what happens when we do that. So, shall we have a countdown? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Wow. Round of applause for Callum. So did everyone see that? And what happened there was we set the sugar on fire, and that released all of the energy, and it released it as heat and as light, so things that we can see and things that we can feel. Now, we had some experts here to help us do this, so we could make it safe. This is not safe if you do it at home, so you have to promise me you won't do this at home. Do you promise me? Awesome, you're a good audience. So, we saw all of that energy released, and we need energy to live. So, remember I said there were two important reasons we eat. So one is so we can live, we can breathe, we can run around, we can do what we want to do, we can play with our friends. But the other reason is that we need to grow. And I'd like to introduce a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Nicola, to the stage. And she's brought her baby daughter with her. We're going to have a little chat. Isn't she cute? We're going to have a little chat with Nicola. So, hopefully this is working, yes? Hi, Nicola.
Hi, Duncan.
So, who's this? Who have you brought with us? Can you tell us her name?
Yeah, this is my daughter, Alice.
Oh, she's gorgeous, isn't she? Well, thank you so much for coming here today. How old is Alice?
So she'll be 9 months old next week.
Oh, so she's a little...
Not even a year yet.
Not even one, so she's a little baby. And how big was Alice when she was born, Nicola?
So when Alice was born, she weighed 3.5 kilograms. So that's about the size of a small pumpkin.
Wow, so not very much at all. And she's grown since then, so she's quite a lot bigger now.
Yeah, in fact, she's 3 times the size she was when she was born already in 9 months.
Wow, that's amazing. And how long do you think it would take before Alice can grow up to your size, Nicola?
Well, I think I reached this size when I was about 15 years old. So she's got almost 15 years to go until she's the same size as me, or maybe even bigger.
Wow. That's fantastic. So, I mean, already she's tripled in size in 9 months, and it's only going to take 15 years before Alice is a fully grown adult human. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming, Nicola. Round of applause for Nicola and Alice. Bye, Alice. And the reason that Alice could grow so quickly is because she could take nutrients out of her food. So, what do we mean by that? So, eating plants helps us grow, and we need to eat food that's really good for us. But our bodies, they're not made from bananas, are they? So, what is it in bananas that allow our bodies to grow? Well, the building blocks of our bodies are called nutrients, okay? We can extract these nutrients from our food, and we can use them for growth. So, did anyone hear that? I think something might have happened in that plant pot. Did that plant start growing? I didn't see it. I heard a funny sound, so I thought it might have done. I'm going to need you all to do me a big favor. I want you to keep your eye on this plant pot. And if you see that plant growing, will you all shout and tell me? Can we do that? Okay. So let's move on. Where was I? Oh yeah, I remember. So we need nutrients to grow, and we get nutrients from eating plants and from eating animals. But where do plants get the nutrients that they need to grow? How do plants get hold of these kind of building blocks of their bodies? Where do they come from? Well, plants, some of them, they need to do the same as us. They need to eat. And some plants can actually eat animals. I've got a guest, I think, who's going to come onto the stage in a second that's going to help me with a little experiment. But first, I'm going to show you this plant. So if my guest wants to come onto the stage. Hello, what's your name? This is Adrian, everybody. Give Adrian a quick round of applause. Thank you. So Adrian is going to help me with an experiment with this plant. And this is called the Venus Flytrap. Now, the camera's going to zoom in. And can we see the leaves there? Can you see them, Adrian? They look like jaws. And those leaves are a trap. And they're a trap to trap insects. And what this plant does is it traps the insects and it dissolves them away and it takes the nutrients from them. But it doesn't want to do that if nothing is there, because these traps take a lot of energy to make. So the plant needs to know it's got an insect prey there. And the way it does that is because it's got these little hairs inside the trap. Can you see them? Can you see the little hairs, Adrian? So what I want you to do, Adrian, is I want you to take this stick, and when I tell you, I want you to put that stick inside that trap and wiggle it around and pretend that you're a fly. So give it 2 seconds. Go for it. Oops. Is that working? Yeah. We'll pull it out. We all see that. We see the trap close. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adrian. If you want to go and sit down, thank you. Round of applause for Adrian. So this plant traps and dissolves insects to get hold of its nutrients. I want to show you a little video now so you can actually see how this works in nature. So we can see we've got a little fly here. It's crawling up the stem, and it's now entering the trap, and it's hit 1 hair, 2 hairs, and there we go, it's closed. And the poor little insect is now going to be lunch for that carnivorous plant, for the Venus Flytrap. You almost feel a little bit sorry for them, don't you? Yeah, I do too. But most plants, they don't eat insects, do they? They get their nutrients from somewhere else. And most plants get their nutrients from the soil. Now, I've been able to set up a little experiment to show you that allows us to see how plants get hold of their nutrients. So I'm going to walk over to it now. And this box here allows me to see below ground. Okay? Now we've got some plants growing in here. We've got a grass. We've got some peas here. We've got some wheat, actually, and some grass and making hay. And if we have a look below ground, we can see that even though these plants are very small above ground, the roots that they have drilled deeply into the soil. And they're almost 1 meter down into the soil, even though these plants are only a few centimeters above ground. And that's important. That's really important. And that tells us, because the plant is spending so much of its energy to find nutrients, how important nutrients are. So, I think, have we seen the banana plant? Is it? Oh, it's definitely growing now. This plant is definitely growing now. Now, I wonder what it is. And it does seem to be growing really slowly, doesn't it? And that makes me wonder, why is this plant growing so slowly? Maybe it's because it doesn't have enough nutrients. So we can do something about that. Maybe we can help it grow and give it some nutrients and find out what type of plant it is. So the way we can give nutrients to a plant is through something called fertilizer, and that helps plants grow. So what is fertilizer? Plants, and you and me, we all need nutrients, and there are 3 nutrients that we particularly need, and they are called potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And together, we call these nutrients fertilizer. But plants can't take these nutrients up in their pure form. They have to be turned into fertilizer that can be then taken up through the roots and the plants can use to grow their bodies. So let's have a look at these nutrients. Let's see how they get turned into fertilizer. But this is quite dangerous, so I'm not going to do that myself. I've got a friend who's going to help me. I'm going to welcome my friend Nate to the stage.
Hello! How is everyone? Excellent.
My friend Nate He's a specialist in chemistry. He knows a lot about chemistry, and he can do this much more safely than me. So he's going to do a couple of experiments. So the first nutrients that we're going to look at is potassium. Now, potassium is a metal, and it's relatively common in the Earth's crust. So we can find it in about 2% of all of the rocks on Earth are made from potassium. And this is an example of one of those rocks here. So this rock in front of me is a granite, and it contains lots and lots of the nutrient potassium. And what Nate has got is a pure form of potassium over there. And he's going to show you what happens when it's turned into fertilizer that goes into the soil that can be taken up by plants. So I'm going to hand over to Nate, and he's going to tell you what he's going to do. But I'm going to stand over here.
A little bit further. So potassium is one of the most reactive metals. And what happens is that it reacts with the air around us, but it really likes reacting with water. So much so that it gets so hot, we should see a bit of a fire. So should we see what happens? Excellent. Can we have the lights down, please? Right, here goes number one. Oh. Put another piece in. Now, we can see that it's very hot, so the potassium is reacting with the water. It's actually splitting it apart. It's producing a gas, which is called hydrogen, which then heats up so much that it actually sets on fire. But now, if we bring the lights up, we're also going to see the formation of the fertilizer. So down there, we're seeing that the water starts to change to a different color, and that's because I put a special dye in it to be able to see when fertilizer is being made.
Thank you, Nate. That's fantastic. Round of applause for Nate there. So, that was pretty impressive, right? That's the process through which potassium metal gets turned into fertilizer that plants can use. But there are two other really important nutrients, as I said. And now we're going to have a look at some of the even more spectacular ways that they are turned into fertilizer. So next, we're going to have a look at phosphorus. Now, to make phosphorus fertilizer, we have to cause phosphorus to stick to oxygen in the atmosphere. And when they stick together, they produce fertilizer. Now, this is quite a slow process, but we can speed it up. So what Nate's going to do is he's going to set some phosphorus on fire. If he can light the Bunsen burner. Yes, brilliant. We've got the Bunsen burner going. He's going to heat up this metal rod, and he's going to set some phosphorus on fire. And he's going to burn that phosphorus in pure oxygen, so we can speed up the process of making fertilizer. So I'm going to hand over to Nate and let him show you what he's going to be doing.
This is burning in pure oxygen, but also when we burn phosphorus, there's also quite a dangerous thing. It produces a chemical called phosphorus pentaoxide, which is a poison. Now, this poison, it starts off by giving you a bit of a sore throat, and then you might feel a bit nauseous, a bit of a dodgy tummy. Then it causes explosive diarrhea. Ugh. And then you start fainting until ultimately you might have a bit of an illness. So this is why we're doing it inside of a vessel. Now, I've heated this rod up to a really high temperature so I could ignite the phosphorus. And then I'm just going to turn off my Bunsen burner. Pick up this here, gently. Oh, hello. Touch it to the phosphorus, and then here we go. Now, we can see that it burns with a very bright flame, but also, this is something you might have heard it called phosphorescence, and it actually produces light in itself from being excited like this. And this is a very dramatic chemistry demonstration, but I find it quite a beautiful demonstration as well. And as it's doing this, it is then able to react with water, which is where we get the actual fertilizer from.
Thank you very much, Nate. So that's how we make the other type of fertilizer, phosphorus. Now, I promise you, this is safe. As soon as the fertilizer has been made, it's then safe, it can go into soils, and plants can take up those nutrients. But you wouldn't want to eat these two metals directly, would you? So we can see why fertilizer is so important. Okay. Now, the final important nutrient that I want to tell you about is nitrogen. Now, nitrogen is a gas, and we find it in the atmosphere, along with some other gases like carbon dioxide and nitrogen. And like those, we can't feel nitrogen, we can't see nitrogen, we can't smell nitrogen, but it's there. In fact, it makes up most of the atmosphere. So when you take a deep breath, most of what you breathe in is nitrogen. But you can't use that nitrogen. You can't use it as a nutrient. It has to be turned into a form that plants can take up, and that you can then eat those plants to get those nutrients, to get nitrogen. And this can happen in lots of different ways. Some bugs in the soil can do it. Humans can do it through technology, so we've invented lots of processes that allow us to take the nitrogen out of the atmosphere and turn it into fertilizer. But the most spectacular way that nature can do it is through lightning. So what happens is when lightning travels through the atmosphere, it causes nitrogen to stick to the oxygen and to make fertilizer. Now, we're really, really lucky because we've managed to borrow a special machine. It's owned by Derek. He's going to come onto the stage and set it up now. Welcome Derek to the stage. And what Derek has built is a weather machine. And what this weather machine lets us do is it lets us create lightning indoors. And that lightning will then allow us to make nitrogen fertilizer right here and right now. So who wants to see some lightning? Okay, Derek, take it away. So that's real lightning. That's not a trick. That's real lightning indoors inside this room now. That's fantastic. Shall we have another one? There we go. Wow. And all the time that lightning is making fertilizer. Thank you so much, Derek. Round of applause for Derek. So what happens then is when this fertilizer is formed in the atmosphere, it rains, the nitrogen fertilizer dissolves in the rain, and it washes into our soil so plants can use it. But where do the nutrients come from in the first place that make up the other fertilizers? So we know that nitrogen comes from the atmosphere. Where do we get the rocks and the metal from to make the other fertilizers? So most of the phosphorus and the potassium that we use as fertilizer comes from Africa, from North Africa. And this is what that kind of environment should normally look like. So this is a grassland. You can see it's got animals in it, lots of plants, a really nice place to be. Now, if we want to get phosphorus rocks from this environment, what happens is, instead of having this beautiful landscape, we just have a desert. There's absolutely nothing left of the plants after the mining has taken place. This environment will be totally destroyed by taking up, by digging up the rock from the environment. And we need to take up a lot of these rocks because we've got a lot of people to feed. The planet is full of lots and lots of human beings. So, how many people do you think live on planet Earth? Okay, well we've got a little voting pad for you. So, in between two of you, you should have a little pad. Can you find your little pads? Does everyone have their little pad? Excellent. So we're going to ask you the question, how many people are there on the planet? And I don't want you to vote yet, so don't push anything yet. If you think it's A, then it's 7 billion. B is 70 million. C is 7 million. And D is 700,000. So you can vote now. Okay, has everyone voted? Now, we were supposed to have a nice, pretty graph that showed us what your votes were, but unfortunately, we've had another technical hitch. Someone will be fired later, don't worry. So who thought it was A? So most of you thought it was A, and most of you were right. Yay! Round of applause for everyone. There are 7 billion people on planet Earth. So that causes us a big problem. 7 billion mouths to feed. And we keep digging up the nutrients from the ground and turning them into fertilizer. But this is a big problem because these nutrients, they're not going to last forever. We need to keep digging them up, but they will eventually run out. And when they do, we can't make any more fertilizer and we can't make food. So this is a bit worrying. But we don't need to worry because there's another way we can make fertilizer. So it's time to take out those voting pads again and see if it works this time. So where do you think we could get fertilizer from instead of digging up rocks? So if you think we could get it from outer space, you click A. If you think we could get it from poo, then B. If you think we get it from another planet, then C. Or maybe we could get it from the moon. We click D. So everyone, can you vote now, please? Has everyone voted? Right. Who thinks we can get it from outer space? No? How about from the moon? Who thought we can get it from poo? Yes! That is the right answer. We can make fertilizer from poo. So how do we make fertilizer from poo? When animals eat food and it goes through their digestive system, there isn't enough time for them to take all of the nutrients out of that food before they need to go for a poo. So poo has still got lots of nutrients left inside it that could just get wasted. So we could potentially turn that into fertilizer. And I've got some animals here who I think might be able to help us solve this problem. So do you think you can stay really quiet for me? Remember, we're going to be really quiet. So we've got some animals here. Now, we're very grateful that our friends from the farm have brought these animals in. So I'm just going to ask them a few questions about these animals. So what are these animals?
So these animals are alpaca. Yeah, so native to South America normally, but becoming more and more popular in this country as pets.
So they're South American alpaca. Fantastic. What do alpaca eat?
In the wild, they would eat things like grasses, which are really coarse, but in this country, we feed them sort of a pellet food as well, because in this country, the weather is so sort of cold that we don't get a lot of rich grass all year round.
So we have to feed them with a different type of food. Do you think I could possibly feed them? Are we hungry? Did we have breakfast? Oh, no, he's hungry. He's a hungry alpaca. Fantastic. And how much poo do alpacas make?
So like most herbivore animals, they just constantly eat. So it's like having a constant meal all day long on the grass fields. So they can poo anywhere between 5 to 10 times a day.
Wow. Okay, they make a lot of poo. Now, we're going to have to be quiet again, but thank you very much for bringing the alpaca to see us today. They're absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much for being quiet for the alpaca. They're really amazing creatures, and we didn't want to scare them. So 10 times a day. That's a lot of poo. But there aren't enough alpacas on the planet to make enough fertilizer for us to fertilize our crops and to make food. But there is an animal on the planet that there's enough of. Can you guess what that animal is? So those of you that think it's humans would be right. So there are a lot of humans on planet Earth, and they make a lot of poo. So today, every single one of us combined in this room will make about 500 kilograms of poo. That's the size of a small elephant. Do we want to see what this kind of poo might look like? I'm not sure I do. I think it might be a bit smelly. But my friend Andy had the unenviable task of preparing some poo for us. That's fresh poo. It's properly steaming. Ugh. So this isn't actually human poo. This is horse poo, but it gives you the idea. So an elephant's worth of poo a day from this room, and we just flush it down the toilet, and it goes out into the oceans, and we've lost it. We can't use it. And there are still lots and lots of nutrients in this poo. So if we use this poo, we put it onto the soil, maybe it could become fertilizer. But plants, they can't get hold of nutrients from poo on their own. So shall we see how these nutrients are released from poo and turned into fertilizer? So the things that do this are very small. So I think someone might have a magnifying glass for me. Has anyone got a magnifying glass for me? Yes, here it is. Brilliant. Thank you very much, young man. You reach round the poo. Okay. Now, I'm not sure this magnifying glass is going to be big enough, because these things are really, really small. Has anyone got a bigger magnifying glass I could borrow? Ah, that's more like it. Thank you very much. Now, this is the kind of magnifying glass that I need. So, let's see if we can find the creatures that might break down poo. Can anyone see any weird creatures that might have escaped from the soil? I've magnified them by about 20 times, so they should be coming in to see us now. Can we see them? Okay. So these are our friends. These are the worms and the beetles. And what they want is they want poo. So let's give them some poo. And what the worms and the beetles do is they find the poo, they can break the poo down, and they can move it around in the soil. But they can't break it down enough yet for plants to be able to take the nutrients up. So we've got an even smaller group of organisms, small, strange creatures that do this. And now, rather than magnifying them 20 times, we're going to magnify them thousands of times. So keep your eye out. We might have some strange creatures coming into the octagon. Have we found them? Can we see them? These are really strange creatures. And these are the bacteria and the fungus. And these tiny little creatures in the soil have a really important role. They're the heroes of recycling in the soil. And what they can do is they can search out poo, and they can take the nutrients out of poo, and they can use them, and they can fertilize plants with them. So shall we see what happens when they fertilize a plant? So there they are. They're taking the nutrients out of the poo, and they're putting them into the plant. And what's happening? The plant's growing. It's working. The microbes are fertilizing the plant, and it's growing really quickly now. Fantastic. Wow. And this is what happens in the soil all of the time. These tiny little creatures are fertilizing our plants so we can make food. Fantastic. I think we should give the bacteria and the fungus a round of applause. Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. Really, really amazing. So, if we stopped flushing our poo away, if we put it on the fields, and we used microbes, like bacteria and fungus over here, gives a wave, to turn it into fertilizer, we can recycle it, and we can make the crops that we need without digging up so much rock, and while saving the planet. And that will allow us to feed 7 billion people. Now, I think I might know what this plant is now. So I think it might have dropped one of its fruits because it was so happy. Do we know? It's a banana plant. And you know, I love bananas. So that's a really good thing. So because poo can be used to make bananas, that means that everybody in this room is a fertilizer factory. Thank you very much.